Welcome to the Deep Dive, where we take the world's most dense and complex figures, organizations, and stories and distill them down to the essential, fascinating knowledge nuggets you need to be truly well-informed.
And today, we are peering behind a massive curtain to study one of the most powerful, yet personally secretive figures in global technology, Ma Huateng.
Better known universally by his nickname, Pony Ma. He is the architect, the co-founder, and the chairman of Tencent, a conglomerate that doesn't just hold market share in China's digital landscape. It virtually is the digital landscape.
It absolutely is. We are talking about a company that defines social media, spans global gaming empires, operates massive entertainment divisions, and runs critical financial services. Ma is a true titan.
And a titan who remains, fiercely private. Our mission today for you, the curious learner, is to cut right through the complexity of this trillion-dollar ecosystem and understand the specific strategic milestones that transformed Ma Huateng from a relatively low-earning engineer.
A very low-earning engineer.
Right, into one of the world's most influential people. His influence is undeniable, but it's his specific strategic method, his adaptability, and his internal management philosophy that we are really going to dissect.
And his stature is just immense. He's been listed multiple times on Time magazine's list of the world's most influential people. I think it was 2007, 2014, and 2018. And Forbes credited him as one of the world's most powerful people way back in 2015.
So to set the stage with an initial snapshot of the sheer scale we are discussing, he is highly educated, holding a Bachelor of Science degree in computer science and applied engineering from Shenzhen University, which he earned in 1993.
And the money. As of the most recent updates, and this is for November 2025, his personal net worth stands at a staggering U.S. $63 billion.
$63 billion. That is just the size of the leverage he generated in a couple of decades. Is mind-boggling.
And that leverage didn't come from a flash of, original invention. It came from strategic adaptation and flawless execution. So we're going to follow the thread of innovation that led to this monumental success.
We'll explore the initial inspiration he drew from others, specifically ICQ, which led to the creation of OICQ.
Then, of course, the high-stakes legal battle with AOL that forced that mandatory rebranding to QQ.
But crucially, we need to analyze the specific, almost desperate business pivots, the maneuvers that secured early revenue and guaranteed survival when the company was right on the brink of collapse.
And finally, we will dive into the internal competition strategy, the famous two-team challenge that burst WeChat, which is, a global phenomenon.
Okay, so to really understand Pony Ma, we have to understand his foundation. Unlike some of his contemporaries who might have started in sales or media, Ma started as a pure engineer.
Yes, an engineer in telecommunications infrastructure. That technical expertise is the absolute DNA of Tencent. It influenced every single strategic decision the company made when it was scaling up.
Okay, let's unpack this then. Let's start at the very beginning. The geographic and professional roots that really shaped his perspective. Ma Huateng was born in Shaoyang, Shantou, Guangdong, on October 29, 1971.
But his career trajectory isn't really defined by his birthplace, but by his relocation. And this is a key point.
This geographic pivot is essential context, right?
Yeah, it's absolutely essential. His father, Ma Qinshu, secured a pivotal job as a port manager in Shenzhen. This meant Ma Huateng grew up and got his primary education in Shenzhen, which, starting in the 1980s, was rapidly transforming from a small fishing town into a special economic zone.
An SEZ, a massive government-sponsored incubator for technology, trade, and economic growth.
Exactly. So living and studying right in the middle of the fastest-growing technological hub in the entire country, it certainly focused his ambitions.
He graduates from Shenzhen University in 1993 with that degree in computer science and applied engineering. So he wasn't just, interested in the internet. He was equipped with the precise foundational engineering skills needed to build the coming digital infrastructure.
And this leads us directly to his surprisingly humble starting point. His first professional role was with China Motion Telecom Development,
a supplier of telecommunications services.
Right. And his role there was specialized. Really specialized. He was in charge of developing software specifically for pagers.
Imagine that. You're starting a global social media conglomerate from the ground up, but your initial focus is writing code for pagers. And the salary. This is the part that always gets me.
It's unbelievable.
He reportedly earned a mere $176 per month.
176. That figure is almost impossible to reconcile with his current status, but it emphasizes the sheer exponential growth driven by the digital revolution he helped usher in.
So the path continued to follow that early communications infrastructure. His second job was with Shenzhen Rongsun Communications.
Yep, Co-Ltd. And there he worked in research and development, focusing on the mechanics of early internet calling services.
So if you trace that arc pagers, specialized telecommunications software, internet calling R&D, it all points toward real-time, lightweight digital communication.
Exactly. It wasn't about building massive enterprise systems. It was about the logistics of delivering messages efficiently across networks.
He understood the pipes.
Precisely. His background was rooted in the mechanics of message delivery and the technical architecture of bridging different communication mediums like pagers to phone lines or early VoIP systems over, shaky internet connections.
So this deep, granular understanding of telecommunications architecture was foundational.
It gave him the technical confidence and the insight to later recognize the potential of instant messaging and, crucially, how to monetize it by integrating it with existing telecom networks. He understood the pipes better than most people who were just focused on the content.
And that recognition came quickly, leading directly to the birth of Tencent in 1998. This is the moment the core DNA of the company is established: strategic inspiration, financial struggle, and the approach that Ma himself would later articulate.
As standing on the shoulders of giants.
Exactly.
The founding moment involved Ma Huateng and 4 other classmates. And the catalyst wasn't some, long simmering project. It was direct observation of a globally successful product. Ma had participated in a presentation for ICQ.
Which was the world's first internet instant messaging service, right? Established by an Israeli company.
That's the one. He saw a product that worked internationally and just realized the Chinese market was a unique ecosystem that was starving for localized, dedicated communication tools.
So, inspired by ICQ, he and his team launched their own similar product in February 1999. They called it OICQ, or Open ICQ.
It was essentially the same model, but localized with a Chinese interface. And the growth was, it was immediate and explosive. China was ready for this.
How explosive are we talking?
By the end of 1999, so in less than a year, OICQ had garnered over 1 million registered users. It immediately became one of the largest services of its kind in the entire country.
This is where we have to address the philosophy of adaptation head-on, because Ma wasn't shy about the resemblance, was he?
Not at all. He openly referenced it later. In a 2009 interview, Ma paraphrased Isaac Newton, stating, "If I have seen further, it is by standing on the shoulders of giants."
But isn't that a massive risk? Given how aggressive AOL was globally protecting ICQ, how did Ma justify that kind of strategic imitation? Wasn't he just setting Tencent up for an inevitable and very costly legal failure?
It was a calculated risk, and it was born out of necessity. The strategic justification was really twofold: speed and localization.
Okay.
They couldn't afford the R&D time or the capital to reinvent the core concept of instant messaging, but they could leverage the proven model, speed it to market in China, and tailored specifically for Chinese users who were, still relatively new to the internet.
So for Ma, immediate user scale trumped legal risk in the short term, especially since they were initially focused only on the domestic market.
Exactly. But the problem with that rapid free growth, however, is the operational cost.
Of course.
Because OICQ was offered completely free to users, Tencent started facing these rising operational costs, mostly infrastructure and servers, that the company simply could not afford to sustain. This was a financial crisis.
How bad did it get?
He was desperate. Ma was applying for bank loans, and he went so far as discussing selling the company altogether. They had the scale, they had the users, but they were running out of time and cash. Fast.
And the survival of the company hinged on securing critical funding in 2000.
They managed to do it. They secured venture capital from the U.S. investment firm IDC, which was a major player in global tech financing, and the Hong Kong telecom carrier Pacific Century Cyberworks, or PCCW.
That combination is really important, isn't it? IDC offered the international validation.
And PCCW offered a direct link to the telecommunications sector. But the terms of that deal, they speak volumes about their desperation. They secured $2.2 million.
Which sounds like a lot.
But in exchange, they had to relinquish a massive 40% stake in Tencent. 40%.
Wow. So this lifeline provided the runway, but now the clock was really ticking to find a sustainable revenue model that didn't rely on future dilution.
And this is where the genius of the revenue pivot comes in. It demonstrates how his engineering background perfectly enabled his strategic business foresight. Ma recognized that the pager market, the very industry he started in, was rapidly shrinking.
But mobile phone usage and SMS were booming?
Exactly. He had to bridge the free internet world with the paid mobile world. The pivotal strategic move was improving OICQ to allow users to send messages directly from the free internet platform to paid mobile handsets via SMS.
Which was not a trivial thing to do. It required technical integration with the global SMS protocol.
That's the technical leap. Ma and his engineers, leveraging their telecom background, engineered a handshake between the OICQ platform and the massive regulated telecom carriers.
So when an OICQ user sent a message to a mobile number,
The telecom operator would charge the recipient a small fee, an SMS charge, and Tencent would receive a shared portion of that fee.
that is a masterstroke. That transition guaranteed their survival.
It was the critical maneuver, striking deals with telecom operators who agreed to share the message fees generated by OICQ users. It effectively leveraged the existing payment infrastructure of the telecom giants to monetize a free internet product.
And the result was transformative and immediate. Suddenly, 80% of Tencent's total revenue came from those message fee-sharing deals.
80%. They didn't have to build a payment system, they simply inserted themselves into the existing massive SMS revenue stream. That transition from a free, struggling software company into a high-utility fee-sharing service with established carriers was the critical maneuver that saved Tencent and financed its early expansion.
If you look at the entire history of Tencent, that single pivot in the year 2000 is arguably the most critical one.
I would agree. It showed Ma's ability to recognize revenue opportunities at the infrastructural level, linking his digital utility to a stable, regulated income source. It pulled the company out of that venture capital dependency cycle and established a stable financial foundation.
So survival was secured, but the company's identity was still tied to its inspiration, which brought them straight into a massive conflict: the AOL arbitration.
Yep. Moving into the next chapter, this legal fight ultimately solidified Tencent's unique identity.
And it was entirely predictable, given the name OICQ. AOL had acquired ICQ back in 1998, and they were intensely protective of their brand.
Which was globally recognized as the first internet instant messaging service. They weren't going to let that go.
So AOL filed an arbitration case against Tencent with the National Arbitration Forum in the United States. Their core claim was simple but devastating. OICQ's domain names -oicq.com and oicq.net were in clear violation of the ICQ trademark.
It was a global corporate heavyweight challenging a still-growing Chinese upstart. There was really only one way it was going to go.
And the outcome was a loss for Tencent. They were forced to relinquish the disputed domain names, signaling the end of the open ICQ era.
However, this legal defeat became a strategic opportunity.
Absolutely. In December 2000, Ma rebranded the software entirely, changing the name to QQ. It was a fresh start, untainted by litigation.
And the name. I read that the Q in QQ used to stand for the word cute. It gave the new brand a friendly, uniquely youthful connotation.
It did, but the strategic shift following this legal loss was far more significant than just changing the logo. Ma learned a critical lesson about brand vulnerability.
Right. He made a conscious, rapid decision to expand Tencent's business portfolio beyond simple instant messaging. If their core product was deemed imitative or legally vulnerable, they needed layers of strategic redundancy and immediate diversification.
And this diversification wasn't timid, was it? It was an aggressive, comprehensive move into the growing Chinese internet ecosystem.
Not at all. By 2003, Tencent released its own web portal, QQ.com, turning QQ from just an application into a destination. And crucially, they made their first significant foray into the lucrative online games market.
And that strategy paid off immediately. By 2004, Tencent had cemented its dominance, becoming the largest Chinese instant messaging service, holding a staggering 74% of the market share.
74%. That dominance, coupled with a growing revenue model, signaled the time for the next major step.
And that step was the Hong Kong Stock Exchange. Ma listed the company in June 2004. The IPO success raised $200 million in the initial public offering,
Instantly transforming Ma into one of the richest people in China's telecom industry. That timeline, from a $176 monthly salary to immense wealth in less than a decade, is a reflection of the speed and scale of the Chinese tech explosion.
But the true strategic genius in this era wasn't just the successful IPO itself, was it? It was the monetization innovations they pioneered.
Particularly within that newly established gaming sector. This innovation would fund everything that came next.
They launched the online gaming platform in 2004 and started doing something revolutionary that we now just take for granted, selling virtual items to support those games.
Microtransactions. We're talking about functional items like weapons or gaming power, and vanity items like unique emoticons, ringtones, or avatars for their QQ profile.
This was a profound moment in digital economics. Ma understood earlier than almost anyone else that digital goods have a genuine, quantifiable monetary value. It's rooted in scarcity, status, and customization.
And it tapped into the willingness of users who are already deeply embedded in the QQ social ecosystem to pay small, recurring amounts for enhancement or status.
It created an economic flywheel. You give the basic social communication tool away for free, the QQ Messenger, but then you charge fractions of a dollar for digital flair or an in-game advantage.
And these small transactions, multiplied by tens of millions of users, translated into massive high-margin revenue.
This microtransaction model, perfected through QQ and their online gaming platform, became a foundational economic engine for Tencent. It was sustainable, highly scalable, and highly profitable.
And it provided the massive cash reserves needed to fund even more ambitious and complex diversification efforts, including directly challenging the existing giants.
Which is a perfect transition. Those efforts were indeed ambitious, bringing us to where the strategic competition really heated up, leading to the creation of arguably their most globally influential product, WeChat.
Right. Ma was not satisfied with just dominating communication and virtual goods. He wanted to own the entire Chinese digital infrastructure. So in 2005, Tencent launched the CTC platform, PaiPai.com.
PaiPai.com, I remember this. It was explicitly positioned as a direct competitor to the growing e-commerce giant Alibaba, founded by Jack Ma.
Oh, it was a direct shot.
So what does this aggressive move tell us about Pony Ma's strategy? He wasn't just interested in communication anymore. He was intent on building this vast, interconnected digital ecosystem that covered all online activities.
He saw Tencent's massive user base, the billions of QQ users, as leverage to challenge established players in every lucrative online vertical, including retail.
So what was Tencent's strategic advantage in challenging Alibaba?
It was their massive social graph. They tried to leverage the built-in trust and communication channels of QQ to facilitate transactions on PaiPai.com.
But Alibaba was fundamentally built on the mechanics of transaction, logistics, and payment security from day one.
That's the thing. While PaiPai had the users, the core competence of commerce infrastructure was much harder to replicate quickly.
And while Tencent ultimately did not dominate the core e-commerce marketplace, Alibaba proved too strong in that space. The attempt itself signaled Ma's willingness to engage in high-stakes competition.
This expansive, highly competitive spirit led directly to the critical internal innovation story of the decade, the birth of WeChat.
Okay, so by 2010, Ma recognized a fundamental shift was occurring. The market was moving rapidly from PC-based interaction to mobile-first usage.
And QQ was essentially a PC product that had been, kind of awkwardly adapted for mobile screens. Ma realized they needed a truly native, mobile-first product built from the ground up to secure their future dominance.
And to ensure they captured the best possible idea quickly, he adopted a really high-pressure competitive strategy, something you'd see in high-stakes environments like Microsoft's internal projects.
He charged two distinct, completely separate engineering teams with the mandate of creating a new mobile product. It was an internal race against the clock, with the future of the company on the line.
Charging two teams with the company's future in a 2-month sprint? I mean, that sounds like a recipe for internal chaos. What were the inherent risks, and what does it tell us about Ma's management philosophy that he preferred this internal competition over a unified task force?
It speaks to a Darwinian management philosophy, a belief that competitive pressure leads to superior, faster innovation, and that internal conflicts are preferable to complacency.
So the risk was redundancy and wasted resources.
But the reward was speed and diversity of ideas. Ma was frankly paranoid about missing the mobile boat. So he created a system designed to fail fast, learn faster, and produce the winning design, regardless of which internal team won.
And the timeline was incredibly tight, but the results were, they were spectacular. After just 2 months, one team presented the core concept.
A new app focused on voice messaging, text messaging, and group chat, specifically designed for the limitations and capabilities of early smartphones. This was WeChat, or Weixin.
Which means micro-message.
Exactly. WeChat officially launched in January 2011, and its growth trajectory quickly dwarfed even that of QQ's initial explosion. Its focus on voice messages and a clean, mobile-native interface just resonated instantly.
The scale of its success is difficult to overstate.
It is. By 2015, WeChat had become the largest instant messaging platform in the world, utilized by a phenomenal 48% of all internet users in the Asia-Pacific region.
48%. It was no longer just an app. It rapidly integrated payment capabilities with WeChat Pay, government services, e-commerce. It transformed into a true super app.
A portal to almost every digital activity for half the internet users in the most populous region on the planet.
And this rapid success was funded and supported by the established diversification we were just talking about.
Oh, absolutely. The broader portfolio, especially the massive and profitable gaming division, provided the essential financial cushion.
We have some specific figures here, right? The revenue generated from their multiplayer online games was staggering.
It provided the war chest needed to expand WeChat globally and fund infrastructure. Online games like Legend of Yulong and Legend of Xuanyuan boosted Tencent's revenue by more than half, reaching 5.1 billion US dollars, with a robust profit margin of 1.5 billion.
And these weren't just simple mobile games. Tencent focused heavily on massively multiplayer online role-playing games, or MMORPGs, which create these highly engaged user communities.
And those communities are essential for driving the sale of those virtual items, the enhanced weapons, the custom skins, the power-ups, which form the core of that high-margin revenue.
This financial strength allowed Ma to look toward entirely new horizons for diversification, integrating critical societal functions into the Tencent ecosystem.
Which he did. In December 2015, Ma announced that Tencent would be building an internet hospital in Fujian.
This isn't just charity or some random venture. It's an integrated digital system designed to leverage WeChat's user base and payment rails to provide long-distance diagnoses and medicine delivery.
It shows that Ma sees Tencent not just as a communication platform, but as the fundamental underlying infrastructure for Chinese society. He's entering high-value, high-regulation markets like healthcare and finance.
It's a textbook example of leveraging the core communication and digital payment infrastructure, the super app, to enter these high-value markets. They move seamlessly from messaging to transactional commerce to medical services, all through the same digital gateway.
Absolutely. And this brings us to the influence and policy aspects of Pony Ma. A leader of this scale, whose company is so intrinsically tied to the national infrastructure, inevitably becomes deeply intertwined with policy and political relationships.
This is a key contrast with many Western tech leaders, isn't it?
A huge contrast. Ma has significant political roles. He was a deputy to the Shenzhen Municipal People's Congress and served as a delegate in the 12th National People's Congress. This is not simply a politically active executive. He is a politically integrated figure.
For our listener, it's probably important to understand the function of a delegate in the National People's Congress. It acts as a formal channel for conveying industry needs and technical realities to the highest levels of government policymaking.
So for a company like Tencent, having Ma in that position provides critical regulatory foresight and a direct voice in shaping laws that impact things like data security and internet governance.
This connection provides the necessary context when analyzing his public statements on online management. Speaking at a technology conference in Singapore, Ma offered a very clear, very nuanced perspective on information control and security.
He was quoted as saying that online companies from any country must abide by a defined set of criteria and act responsibly.
And he provided a specific rationale for this viewpoint that focuses on stability rather than commercial concerns.
The rationale he provided was that without management or adherence to criteria, the online sphere might lead to uncontrolled dissemination of information, resulting in hearsay, libel, and argument among citizens, not to mention between countries, making online management increasingly urgent.
This statement really forces us to examine the tightrope walk Ma performs every day. How do tech giants, particularly those operating globally with massive scale like Tencent, balance their commercial imperative for open communication with the necessity of adhering to defined state criteria for information security and social stability?
It defines the unique operating environment of Tencent. It is a pragmatic philosophy. He champions responsibility and defined criteria, suggesting that management is necessary to maintain social stability and order against the spread of misinformation or divisive content.
And from an infrastructural stability standpoint, that's paramount for a company that runs the foundational communication services for an entire nation.
Exactly. Now, Beyond his policy roles, we should also touch upon his significant personal philanthropic efforts, which began to surface publicly as his wealth grew exponentially.
Right. In 2016, he made a massive philanthropic commitment.
Massive is the word. He transferred $2.3 billion worth of his personal Tencent shares to his charitable organization, the Ma Huateng Global Foundation. This commitment demonstrated the scale of his personal fortune and established his legacy in areas outside of technology.
Finally, let's wrap up with a few details about his personal profile and assets, which underscore just how massive his global influence is, despite his tendency to remain private and out of the spotlight.
First, a brief, lighthearted detail on the nickname, Pony.
Which comes from?
It's derived quite simply from the English translation of his family name, Ma, which means horse.
Simple as that. And while he is a global figure who wields immense power, he maintains a remarkably low public profile. He seldom speaks with Western media.
This personal secrecy contrasts starkly with the enormous public footprint of his company, and perhaps that deliberate contrast is itself a strategic choice in his unique operating environment.
And a majority of his vast wealth, which again sits at $63 billion, comes directly from his significant stake, about 8% in Tencent holdings.
His personal fortune is completely tied to the value and continued success of his corporate creation.
And his personal assets reflect that immense wealth. He reportedly owns property in Hong Kong, including a redeveloped palatial residence that spans, over 19,000 square feet.
19,600 square feet.
Okay.
Furthermore, he is a noted art collector, reportedly holding pieces valued at $150 million US.
And he also took the time to document his unique experience and vision. In April 2018, his book, China on Fingertips, was launched.
And that book details the entire social transformation process of China into a mobile internet power, a transformation that he himself not only witnessed but largely engineered.
Which brings us to the end of our dive into Ma Huateng. We've traced a remarkable journey, starting with that $176 monthly salary as an engineer developing software for pagers,
Navigating near bankruptcy with OICQ.
all the way to a $63 billion net worth today.
The entire trajectory is just defined by strategic adaptability and execution. He moved from initial strategic imitation standing on the shoulders of giants to immediate and radical monetization.
The company survived early financial ruin by leveraging his engineering background, pivoting to securing revenue via shared message fees with telecom operators. That was the strategic masterstroke that guaranteed their initial stability.
Then came the necessary high-stakes legal defeat against AOL, which, ironically, gifted them a clean, unique identity in QQ and spurred that mandatory diversification into online games and the revolutionary virtual goods economy.
That high-margin gaming revenue fueled the internal strategic competition, the two-team challenge, that led to the development of WeChat.
Which achieved true global dominance and transformed Tencent into a comprehensive digital infrastructure provider, touching everything from commerce to communication to healthcare.
Ma Huateng didn't necessarily invent instant messaging, but he absolutely perfected its monetization, its scale, and its integration into a total digital ecosystem.
His approach highlights how success in the digital age often involves masterful execution, strategic integration, and relentless adaptation, rather than just raw invention.
So, to leave you with a thought to mull over, building on the source material about his policy views.
We saw how Ma fostered internal competition and chaos, that two-team sprint to birth the world-changing innovation of WeChat. Now consider that same dynamic under the pressure of adhering to defined state criteria for information management and social stability, which he argues is necessary.
What happens to competitive, rapid-fire, boundary-pushing innovation when political engagement is a core part of the CEO's operational role, and social stability becomes the paramount strategic objective?
Does the necessity of adhering to national criteria ultimately limit the global reach and strategic direction of massive global tech companies like Tencent?
Think about that tension between stability and speed as you navigate your own digital life.
Thank you for joining us for this deep dive into Pony Ma.
We'll catch you next time.